It happened in 2021, during one of those nights when the snow fell like feathers and the street outside went completely silent. I was driving home from a late shift. The roads were empty, the kind of empty that makes you feel like the last person alive. The headlights cut through the snow, and my windshield wipers beat a steady rhythm, thunk, thunk, thunk. That's when I saw her. A woman stood on the side of the road wearing a long coat and holding what looked like a bundle in her arms. She wasn't waving or anything, just standing there, half turned toward the trees. Her hair was dark, wet from the snow, and she had no hat, no gloves. I slowed down, rolled the window slightly, and called out, "Hey, you okay?" She didn't answer, didn't even look at me. Something about her posture, rigid, heavy, made my stomach twist. I should have just kept driving, but it was below freezing, and I couldn't live with myself if she froze out there, so I pulled over. When I stepped out, my boots sank into the snow. The cold bit into my lungs. "Ma'am, do you need help?" I asked again. She slowly turned her head toward me. Her face was pale, almost gray, and her lips were trembling. She held out the bundle in her arms like she wanted me to take it. It was wrapped in an old blanket. I reached out, hesitating, and then I heard it. A faint cry. A baby's cry. "Is that?" I started, but she stepped closer, pressing the bundle toward me. My fingers brushed the blanket. It was warm, damp, heavier than I expected. The crying grew softer, weaker. I pulled the blanket open. There was nothing inside, just a soaked rag, twisted and knotted into shape. No baby, no warmth, just that smell, earthy and stale, like wet leaves. When I looked up, the woman was gone. I spun around, scanning the snow. Her footprints led off the road into the trees. My body moved before my brain did. I followed. Each step crunched louder than it should have. The trees swallowed the light from my car. The prints kept going deeper until they just stopped. No sign of her. No sound except the wind pushing snow off branches. Then something hit my ear, a whisper, faint but close. I froze. It wasn't words, more like breathing. Then I saw movement, a figure between the trees, crouched low, watching me. I ran back to the car, locked the doors, and turned the headlights on full. The beams cut across the snow, and that's when I saw it, footprints circling my car, the same small, delicate ones from before. Only this time they weren't fresh. They were frozen solid, like they'd been there long before I stopped. I sped home, heart hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. When I parked, I sat there for a long time, staring at the frost crawling up my windshield. The next morning, I checked the road again. Nothing. No footprints, no sign of the woman, just smooth snow. But that night, I found something strange. On my porch rail, someone had placed a small, knotted piece of rag exactly like the one she'd handed me. It was soaked and frozen stiff. I didn't touch it. A few days later, I heard from a neighbor that years ago, a woman had crashed her car on that same stretch of road in the middle of winter. She'd been driving with her baby. They never found the child. Now, every winter night when I drive that route home, I see things in the snow, little impressions beside the tire tracks. Sometimes they look like footprints. Sometimes they look like tiny hands. I try not to look too long, because I'm scared if I do, I'll see her again standing there, holding nothing but cold air, waiting for someone else to take her burden. This happened in 2022, and I swear on everything I have, it still makes me sleep with my lights on whenever the snow starts falling. I was working as a caretaker for a small mountain lodge that shut down every winter. My job was simple: keep an eye on the place, make sure the pipes didn't burst, and shovel the walkway when the drifts got too high. It sounded peaceful, a paid winter getaway. But the quiet up there wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. The kind of silence that eats your thoughts if you sit in it too long. The lodge had 6 rooms and a long, empty hallway with portraits of smiling guests from decades ago. Each face frozen mid-laughter, the edges of the photos yellowed with time. On the second week of December, right after a heavy snowstorm, I noticed one of the portraits had fallen. It was face down on the floor outside room 4. I picked it up, and that's when I noticed something strange. The photo inside was different. It wasn't one of the old guests. It was a picture of me standing in the same hallway, holding that same frame. I nearly dropped it. I hadn't taken any pictures since I'd arrived. No one else had come up the road because the lodge was closed for the season. I put it face down again and checked every lock, every door. Everything was secure. I told myself I was imagining it, that maybe I'd seen my reflection or something stupid like that. That night, the power went out. The wind screamed through the gaps in the roof, rattling every window pane. I lit a candle and sat in the common room near the big stone fireplace. For a while, I just listened to the storm, trying to convince myself it was only the wind when I heard faint footsteps upstairs. I froze. They weren't hurried or frantic, just slow, careful steps pacing the hallway above me. The building was old, so I told myself the wood was expanding, but then I heard a door creak open, then another. One by one, I climbed the stairs with the candle in my hand, the flame bending from the draft. When I reached the top, every door was open except room 4. And then softly, I heard something from behind that door. A whispering shuffle, like someone moving their feet across the carpet. I opened it. The room was dark. The air felt colder, thicker. The window was shut tight, but snowflakes clung to the inside of the glass, melting in slow streaks. The candlelight flickered, and for a split second, I saw movement. Someone standing at the far end of the room, turned toward the wall. I blinked, and the shape was gone. On the nightstand sat the fallen portrait again, only now the photo had changed. I was still in the hallway, but behind me, in the reflection of the window, was that same tall figure, its head tilted low, almost touching my shoulder. I didn't sleep that night. I waited until dawn, packed my things, and drove down the mountain before the next snow hit. When I turned in the lodge keys, the owner looked surprised. He said the last caretaker before me had done the same thing, left early, mid-season. No explanation, just gone. He joked that room 4 had character. I never laughed. A few weeks later, curiosity got the better of me. I looked up old reviews of the lodge online. Buried in the comments from years back was one that made my skin crawl. Stayed in room 4 once, kept hearing someone pacing the hall at night. Next morning, found a photo of myself at the door, like someone had been standing behind me while I slept. Now, every time winter returns and snow piles up on my porch, I catch myself glancing at the reflection in my windows, just to make sure there's no tall shape standing there, head tilted down, waiting for me to notice it again. Because that night taught me something. Some places don't stay empty just because people leave. Sometimes winter gives them enough quiet to come back and look for company. This happened in 2020. I was house-sitting for my aunt while she was away for the holidays. Her place sits back from the road on a hill, surrounded by trees that look like black ribs when it snows. I agreed because the pay was good, and because I told myself I liked the solitude, time to write, catch up on sleep, watch old movies in the evening. The first night, a storm rolled in hard. The wind pressed against the windows like a hand. Snow hit the glass in thin, constant ticks. I made tea, wrapped a blanket around my knees, and let the quiet spool out around me. The house smelled like wax and old cedar. Around midnight, I was dozing on the couch when the phone buzzed. A text from my aunt. She'd delayed her return. No big deal. I turned the lamp down and tried to sleep. After a while, I woke because something was tapping against the kitchen window. A small, distinct tap, 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 like a twig rapping against glass. I paused. Outside, the yard was a white chest. The only sound should have been the wind. I got up and walked to the kitchen. Through the window, snow drifted in slow, pale curtains. At first, I saw nothing. Then, at the very edge of the porch light, a shadow moved, a small, flat shape pressing up against the glass. For a second, I thought it was a leaf. It wasn't. A child's palm was there, pressed to the outside of the window. 5 tiny fingers splayed, the skin pale where it touched. My heart jumped so hard it hurt. "Hey?" I called, trying to keep my voice steady. "Are you all right?" The hand stayed. No sound, no movement beyond that single, patient press. I flicked the porch light on. The light carved a circle in the snow. The palm vanished. I opened the door and stepped onto the porch. The cold hit like a wall. Footprints trailed away from the porch into the yard bare. Small prints that stopped at the tree line. No adult prints nearby. No tracks back toward the road. I scanned the trees. Nothing. The prints looked fresh, not weather-beaten. I told myself someone was playing a joke. Maybe neighborhood kids. My chest felt tight, but I convinced myself to go back inside, lock the door, and call the non-emergency line in the morning. Later at night, I thought I heard music. It was faint at first, like something playing in the attic, notes thin and high, like a music box winding down. I followed the sound to the hallway and up the narrow stairs to the guest room at the top. The door was closed. When I pushed it open, the room was empty. The window curtains fluttered from the draft. On the bed sat a small wooden toy, a hand-carved horse, old and worn, painted once in red. I had never seen it in the house before. I picked it up. The wood was warm despite the cold. Tucked under the horse was a scrap of paper folded small. On it, in blocky child handwriting, was one line: "Come back." I felt my throat close. I checked the windows, the locks, the attic hatch. Everything was shut tight. The only way in would have been to climb the porch and climb the narrow stairs, and in that weather, I would have seen footprints leading to the door. There were none. I put the toy in my pocket because I didn't know what else to do. I slept exactly 3 hours. I think sleep measured in short, jagged breaths. When the sky started to pale in the morning, I went outside to see if anyone had left a note, a sign, anything. The snow around the porch was smooth and white as a sheet. No footprints at all, no tiny prints. The only thing on the porch was the wet outline of the palm on the kitchen window where, in the night, a hand had pressed. I called my aunt. She said she hadn't left anything and that there were no children in the neighborhood. She joked about local kids, then said it might be old toys from when she was a kid. I agreed because it was safer to agree and because I wanted to believe there was a reasonable explanation. That night the tapping returned, this time at the bedroom window. I looked up and saw, in the pale snowlight, again that small palm pressing against the glass. It stayed long enough for me to stand, to walk over, to lean my forehead against the cold pane. I could see the ridges prints like soft fingerprints in the frost. "Who are you?" I whispered. Not because I expected an answer, but because the sound made me feel less alone. No answer, just the slow settling of snow on the sill. In the morning, the toy horse was gone. I spent the rest of my time at the house half expecting to find toys tucked into my coat pocket, half expecting to wake with footprints leading from the bed to the window. The rest of the days were quiet in that brittle way. Snow makes quiet too thin, like silence stretched too far. When my aunt returned, she found the porch prints again. She found nothing else. She hugged me and made coffee and said she'd check the house records. Maybe the previous owners left something behind. We laughed a little to make the room warm. A week later, cleaning out a chest in the attic, my aunt found an old photograph folded between newspapers. It showed the house a long time ago, winter around it, and in the porch light a small shape, someone looking out a child's hand against the glass. No names, no faces clear enough to say who it was, just the time-worn photograph and scrawled on the back in pencil, only a year. When I came home that evening, I went to the kitchen window and touched the glass where the hand had been. The spot was cold and clear. For a long time I listened to the house settle, to the pipes, to the snow pattering like coins against the roof. I don't think the thing that pressed its palm to my window was asking for help. I think it was trying to remember what it felt like to reach inward. Sometimes, on an empty winter night, the world beyond glass feels like a place you can almost step into, and sometimes whatever is outside presses up, just to be sure someone on the other side still remembers them. Now, when the snow starts, I close the curtains early. But every so often, I still find myself walking the house in the evening, room to room, touching panes of glass, as if to prove the cold on the other side is real and not a hand that wants to come back in.